Welcome back to the Peace Offering Kitchen. Today we are going to make artichokes, and then we will also make a homemade mayonnaise to accompany them. This is a super simple prep. We just clipped these off the vine this morning. And so if you've bought these from the store or from a farmer's market and they're starting to look a little brown and woody, you can just always cut a little bit more off of the edge. But since I just cut them this morning, these are fine. And then the only other thing to do is to cut off of the top of them. I like to use a serrated knife when I'm doing this. And so I'll hold my artichoke out in front of me and just cut off the top like this. And now sometimes artichokes will have leaves that have spikes on them. You want to cut those off if that is the case. These artichokes do not have that, but I'm going to show you how to do it just in case you get artichokes that have little spikes. So if that happens, each little leaf would have a thorn on the end of it. And if that's the case, I would take a pair of scissors and just cut the tips off like this, and so that the thorns are not in your artichoke. Okay. I'm going to continue to cut the rest of these, just the tips off. Okay. And now we are going to season this pot of water. So I have just a couple of inches in here. We do not want these artichokes to fully boil and be submerged in water. They float anyway, they wouldn't. You want enough water so that it doesn't burn off when you're cooking it. And so just a couple of inches is normally perfect. And then we want to season this water with a lot of salt. You want to make it taste like the ocean. And when you do that, these little artichokes that sit in there, the salt's going to get into the artichoke heart and really make the flavor a lot better. So we're going to take our salt and dump a lot in there, like that. And then we're going to take our artichokes and place them in the water. It's always important to wash your artichokes first. I always find that bugs like to live down inside the leaves. So you've got to give them a good rinse first and kind of shake them out upside down to make sure you get every last little bug out. So now I've placed these artichokes in here. I'm going to get them on the stove on high with a lid on top of it. This is set to a high temperature. We want these to boil. So once this comes up to a boil, these artichokes will need to cook for 45 minutes to an hour. They're quite large, and I think these ones will probably take up to an hour. So we'll come back to check on this in about 45 minutes. While our artichokes are boiling, we are going to make a homemade mayonnaise to accompany them. And I love this recipe because it is a great way to get egg yolks into the diet. And often store-bought mayonnaise are made with seed oils. And it is so easy to make your own with healthy fats. And so this can actually be a superfood. I have this measuring cup here, and I'm going to put everything in here and blend it right in here. We're going to start with a half a cup of avocado oil. Try to find organic if you can. And I'm just going to fill up this measuring cup to a half a cup. Okay. Next, we're going to add a quarter cup of olive oil. So I'm just going to add it right into this same container. Perfect. The next thing we're going to do is add egg yolks. And so you're going to have to separate your egg whites from your egg yolks. And I will show you how to do that. So you're going to need a bowl or some sort of receptacle to put your egg whites in. You're going to take your egg and hit it on a flat surface until you've got a nice little hole here. Then you're going to take 2 thumbs and try to break it in half. Okay? And the egg whites will start to fall down into the bowl. Then you're just going to transfer this egg yolk back and forth until there's only egg yolks left and the egg white is in the bowl. Then you're going to add this egg yolk directly into your oil. I'm going to compost these shells and do one more, hitting it flat breaking it in half, and then letting the egg whites drain out into the bowl. Okay, directly into there. All right, next we are gonna add 1 tablespoon of cold water. I'm just gonna go over to the sink to get some and do my very best not to spill it on the way back. And then add it directly in here. All right, then we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of Dijon mustard. And then 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. So we're hoping this is a juicy lemon, and it is. All right, perfect. That is 1 tablespoon. Then we're gonna season it with a little salt and pepper, but not much. A little salt, a little pepper. And then I'm gonna stick my immersion blender down into this mixture, making sure that it's set to low, and start blending. So I'm keeping it on the bottom for now. And then start to turn it up a little bit. And you can see how the fats are starting to emulsify. I'm keeping it at the bottom, just tilting it slightly in either direction, resisting the temptation to lift it up. Gonna turn it up again. And once this is almost completely emulsified, you can start to lift it up a little bit. All right, now it's fully blended together. And as you can see, you have a wonderful, thick, fresh, and healthy mayonnaise. For my artichokes today, I want to turn this mayonnaise into an herb mayonnaise, and I'm going to make a rosemary mayo. So I have this rosemary that I just plucked from the garden, but you can use any herb that you like. You can use any combination of herbs to flavor your mayonnaise. So I have washed this rosemary, and you want to make sure to get none of the stem in it. The stem of the rosemary can be quite woody. So this is up to you how much you'd like to put in. How herby do you want your mayonnaise? So I'm just going to get started stemming it, pulling the leaves off of the stem. Maybe just one more. All right, I'm going to compost these. And then I'm going to stick my immersion blender back in here to emulsify the rosemary. And it's just as easy as that. All right. Getting all of the mayonnaise off the immersion blender. Easier said than done. And you can see how beautifully this is incorporated in. And as soon as our artichokes are finished boiling, we'll serve this up. Our artichokes have finished cooking. I'm gonna get them off the stove. These ended up cooking for about an hour. So the way to tell if these are done is by doing a squeeze test with your tongs. And so if you can squeeze them quite easily and they start to sort of push out in the center, that's how you can tell that they're done. You're gonna wanna be able to take all of the leaves off individually, and if they're not yet done, it'll be hard to pull them off. So I'm gonna take these out of the pan of water, turn them upside down a little bit because they will drain quite a bit. And then put them here and allow them to cool before we eat them. These will be very hot to the touch, especially on the inside. And so I recommend giving at least 5 minutes before you try to touch them. So see how this is nice and soft? Not to the point where it fully falls apart, but to where you feel like you could take these leaves apart. See how nice and squishy that is? That's how you know it's done. We are now ready to eat our artichokes, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to take one of these artichokes. All right, so you can take off any of these leaves, and right here, it's nice and meaty, and that part is edible. So you dip it in your herbed mayonnaise, and then you use your teeth to scrape that meat off like this. And it's so delicious. And you can see that leaf is eaten. Okay, so similarly, you're gonna do that with all of the leaves. So let's pretend like we have just come through and eaten every leaf. If you're not a fan of mayonnaise, I like to dip this in butter or a lemon butter. All of these leaves are edible, and you should eat the meat off of each one of them. But then eventually you will get into an area where they're too thin and it's just too hard to eat them. And so once that happens, you can start to take those leaves off and actually pop the whole thing off like this. Okay? And discard that. Now there are all these hairs right here, and these are not edible. So these would actually choke your throat. And so you're going to use a spoon and get all of these hairs out. So I'm going to scoop all of these hairs out and discard them. And now we have the artichoke heart, which is the most delicious part. So you can take this, dip it in your mayonnaise, and take a bite. And it is the most delicious delicacy on the planet. Well, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.